Introducing the African Diaspora News Channel app, your gateway to stories that's overlooked by the corporate mainstream media.
And we serve as the voice to the global Black community.
Again, we got Dr. Candace Matthews.
A lot of these documents, looking at.
We are committed to informing and educating through the power of media.
This country is supposed to be about the land of the free for all. It has not been free for Black people, and we are tired.
With our platform, we're helping to end injustice by exposing it.
Join us in standing for excellence in journalism and serving our community. Download the African Diaspora News app today.
Hello everyone, my name is Naledi Mfoloe and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the latest edition of the African Diaspora News channel, where we unravel the stories that shape our world and our communities. Today we dive deep into the currents of information, from the pulse of politics to the heartbeat of entertainment. We've got it all covered, so please stay tuned for a news experience like no other. Today's story delves into an issue that strikes at the very heart of justice and equity. Now, it is a matter that affects millions and yet remains largely unaddressed across many parts of the globe. And this is the accessibility of legal systems. Now, to make this conversation specific and touching, we turn our attention to the words of Chief Justice Dr. John Mfoloe of South Africa, who recently highlighted a grievous imbalance in the judicial landscape of this country. Let's have a look.
The budget, in my view, in our view, considered view as MK, fails also to ensure that during this 7th Parliament, we ensure that the access to justice is improved, particularly by those South Africans who live in rural areas. We all know that South Africans who live in rural areas and who are obviously vulnerable and poor, and if one were to use color, they are by and large Black people who live in those areas. Those areas are not developed. Sometimes those areas don't even have bridges. It has been raining. They will not gain access to the courts because of lack of infrastructure in those areas. Maybe the department wants to consider other options that may be available. For example, having more and more circuit courts in those areas. Access to justice, particularly in remote areas, is still a huge challenge for us.
Now, for many, particularly those residing in South Africa's rural areas, as Chief Justice Dr. John Mfoloe pointed out, access to courts is a distant dream. Now, this is where the majority of Black population lives, and legal option is hindered not just by economic hardships, but also by the sheer absence of infrastructure. There are no courts to be found, and hence no access to justice for the poor. Now, this situation highlights the universal truth. Litigation, and by extension, justice, often remains a privilege of the wealthy. Now, those who are economically disadvantaged often find themselves locked out of the legal system due to overwhelming costs and logistical barriers, turning what should be a fundamental right into an exclusive commodity. Now, to understand this fully, I think let's break down the problem, right? The cost of litigation is prohibitive. Legal fees, the cost of hiring a competent lawyer, filing fees, court charges, and other expenses can skyrocket into sums that are very expensive for someone struggling to make ends meet. Now, they may depend on public defenders who, despite their best efforts, are often overburdened with caseloads or turn to underfunded legal aid services that are unable to bridge the gap effectively. Furthermore, I think also another important factor is time. A luxury that the economically disadvantaged can afford is also another factor. Litigation is not only costly, but can be long drawn out. For a wealthy individual, prolonged legal battles are bearable, but for the poor, the time spent fighting legal battles could mean days of work, lost wages, and the inability to manage the day-to-day necessity of life. Now, the infrastructural void in rural South Africa actually worsens the unequal access to justice. In these areas, courts are absent. Many rural people must travel great distance to attend court sessions, which is a journey paved not just with logistical difficulties, but with significant financial implications. And what Chief Justice Dr. Mfoloe suggests is nothing short of necessary. The establishment of second courts in rural areas is necessary. This could be a pivotal step towards bringing scales of justice into balance. Things like mobile courts, community legal centers, increased funding for public defenders, and leveraging technology through virtual court hearings could indeed usher us into a new era of accessibility. But implementation is key. If we're being honest, it is not enough to merely establish these courts in rural areas. These courts must be equipped with the same judicial competency in urban centers. There should be no compromise in the quality of legal recourse available in these areas. Things like the staff, from the judges to the clerks, must be adequately trained and supported. Resources must be poured into maintaining these institutions, ensuring that they do not become ineffective placeholders rather than pillars of justice. Now, I think that Dr. Mfoloe's proposition isn't an isolated call for reform in South Africa alone. It echoes a global resonance, whether it be the remote villages in India, the inner cities in America, or the communities in the Latin America. The call to action remains the same. Now, in conclusion, the rift between the rich and the poor within the realm of law and justice is one of society's most glaring inequalities. It undermines the fundamental premise upon which our legal systems are founded, that all are equal under the law. And as Chief Justice Dr. Mfoloe insightfully highlights, the bridging of this gap requires more than mere rhetoric. It demands actionable, impactful changes. It is important upon us that as a society to heed this call and to transform the concept of justice for all into a reality. Now, with that being said, let's engage in the comment section, shall we? We want to hear from you. And while you're at it, please give this video a thumbs up. That's it from me. Till we meet again, it is goodbye.